Ian. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Well, these might be bumper times for supermarkets. It's rare that we report on companies handing back taxpayer cash, but in the wider retail world, it's extremely difficult environment. Well, yesterday, all shops could reopen across England, but footfall remains well down on this time last year, and the collapse of Arcadia and the liquidation of Debenhams casts a dark shadow over the high street. Well, in a moment, I will be speaking, well, I can speak to him now, in fact, Nick Wheeler from Charles Tyrrell in one of his stores in Marlow, and we'll also be speaking imminently to Jace Tyrrell, Chief Executive of the new West End company, which represents retailers and other businesses in Europe's busiest shopping centre. That is, of course, Oxford Street in central London. But first to Nick Wheeler. Nick, welcome to you. Obviously, it's been a torrid time in fashion retail. One of your direct competitors, of course, TM Lewin, went into administration. Have you benefited from that at all?
I think it's a, you know, if a competitor goes into administration and a very direct competitor, then obviously we're going to benefit. We are much more an online business. CharlesTyrrell.com does 70% of our sales, so we're only 30% retail. I think that's protected us. And it means, especially during lockdown, any Lewin customers or any Charles Tyrrell customers have found it easier to buy from us.
Now, obviously, Lewin have gone online only now. Is that something that potentially you could do in future?
I think for us, it's very important to give the customer what they want. You know, effectively, the customer will always decide. If the customer wants to go shopping, then we will be here, actually go onto the high street. Then we would love to be here. You know, we're here for the customer. And we will be on retail and online, and it's up to them to decide what they want to do.
So are you negotiating right now with your landlords and trying to seek rent reductions?
I think it's I've always, I started this business 34 years ago, and I've always believed it's about making the customers happy, making the suppliers happy, and making the people who work in the business happy. And one of our big suppliers is our landlords. And so we are working very closely with the landlords, who we have a very long-term relationship with. And I think they need to recognise, and they have recognised, that the retail landscape's changed. You know, our retail in the city, we're 90% down. So, you know, it's tough. And we're working very closely with them to give us concessions, but on the basis that, you know, we're here for the long term. And when it comes back, we'll work together, and hopefully we'll pay them more.
Now, obviously, working from home has been a big trend this year, Nick. Has that hit demand for formal wear?
I think working from home, in a way, has been it's. I think what the coronavirus has done is that it's brought forward what was happening in the market anyway. You know, casual has been a growing part of our business. We call it Zoom casual, which is, you know, what you can wear in a Zoom call, and it might be, you know, never ask people to stand up because, you know, you might find they're wearing absolutely nothing underneath. So, you know, casual is, or Zoom casual as we call it, is something that's been happening for years. But the formal market is not dead. You know, people will be getting married, people will go back to work, and we sell just outstanding value suits and shirts. And you know, I think that will come back. And the vaccine's great news for us. And let's see where we go in the future.
All right, well, stay with us, Nick. We're going to bring in Jace Tyrrell now from the West End company. Jace, welcome to you. How was footfall in the West End yesterday?
Well, it was a solid start. We're about 50% on last year. So I think in the current situation, that was a really good start. Obviously, 3 weeks to go to catch up on an almighty season where normally we turn over about £2.5 billion in the West End in November, December, perhaps 900 million. So it's great that we've opened. Obviously, customers are coming back. But actually, there's such a shortfall and still a really challenging year to make up, obviously, the huge losses that we faced here in the West End, but retailers also up and down the country.
And to what extent is the West End going to miss the tourists this winter?
Well, I think there's no tourists, actually. I mean, very few at all. But I think we've got Londoners coming in. And actually, for our customers from London, there's lots of space to move. Obviously, fewer tourists here, which does give, obviously, a more sort of safe environment as well, given we're still managing with COVID. Every Saturday in December, Regent Street is going to be traffic-free, which is great, more space to move and see the Christmas lights. So it does play in our favour, being an outdoor shopping destination. But I think for a lot of our businesses, the most challenging sort of decision by this government to take us out of tax-free shopping means all those tourists we thought were going to come back next year from the Middle East, the Far East, won't be coming to London. I mean, this Chancellor, which I think is happening today in Parliament, the legislation will remove us from the only country in Europe not to offer tax-free. And that's 40,000 jobs this Chancellor has now made redundant up and down the country because of that decision.
Is that a hit for you, Nick, this removal of tax-free shopping for tourists?
Is a silly move, actually, and it is a hit for us. You know, we have shops in Jermyn Street in the West End, in Regent Street, and a lot of tourists come there. And I think making us the most, as we've just heard, the most uncompetitive retailer for overseas shoppers in Europe is an absolute disaster. And people will just go to Paris and other places in Europe where they get these benefits.
Well, Jace, one of the businesses that will be most affected by this measure if it becomes law is Harrods, which said yesterday it was starting its winter sale before Christmas for the first time in its 171 years, I think. Yes. Do you worry that other businesses are going to have to force it? I mean, it looks like there's a lot of businesses on sale right now in the West End.
Yeah, look, there's billions of pounds of stock that needs to clear. And of course, for customers, they're going to see a lot of heavy discounting. That's started already, as you say, unprecedented with Harrods. There's lots of others as well. And I think all the staff in the West End are really focused on really excellent customer service and obviously clearing that stock. But, you know, when we talk to our businesses that operate all around the country and all around the world, I have to say this tax-free decision is more damaging to them than COVID and Brexit combined.
Jace, obviously we had awful news this week from both Debenhams and Arcadia. Are you optimistic that those businesses can survive in some sort of form?
I think there's still very solid retailers out there. There's, as your previous guest from Tesco was saying, this has accelerated, obviously, a huge change in the sector. But there's still very profitable, viable retailers. And let's remember, it's the largest private sector employer in Britain. But we're going to need these measures, things like business rates that you were talking about, opening up for our international tourists to come here. So we will have to repurpose, and particularly the nation's high street here on Oxford Street. Our local council is working with businesses to really transform this. So you're going to see massive change on the high street, but we're a very entrepreneurial bunch. We're ready for the challenge. We want to turn the corner and get into 21 to really start our recovery.
Nick, do you think there's a lot of pent-up demand built up after this latest lockdown?
Well, I'm certainly hoping there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think, people will be going back to work. We don't know when that'll happen. And that's one of the great problems is the uncertainty. But they will be going back to work. And when they do, I think they will want a new wardrobe. I think people are fed up with sitting at home doing nothing. People need to get out. We need the high street. We need to be back in offices. I think it's a sort of human need as much as anything else. I think it's very lonely at home. And so I'm hoping, I don't know whether that thinking and hoping is the same thing, but I'm hoping that our shops will be doing some roaring trade when we do finally get back to work.
Well, Jace is nodding along with you in agreement there. Jace, I've got to ask you, I took the kids down to the West End the other night to look at the lights, and absolutely beautiful it is too. You're standing in front of a lovely tree as well. I mean, it looks very classy. But the whole tone is lowered by all these wretched rickshaws that tear around with music blaring out. Why can't you get rid of them? I mean, it makes the place look like a third world bazaar.
Look, completely agree. And thank you for the lights. I mean, they are absolutely stunning. And I think, get out and come and see them and obviously do some shopping, your listeners. But I think, these pedicabs, they're an absolute nuisance. And we've tried for many years. But this Parliament hasn't accepted the bill. So another thing to pick up in 21. Let's get rid of them, as you say, Ian. It really doesn't create the environment we want here in the West End.
All right, amen to that. Jace Tyrrell, Nick Wheeler, good to talk to you both. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Well, still to come on Ian King Live. We're going live to a bowling alley.